FÉNIX, the College of Wizards. A single ray of light, that was it. In the middle of the road, the sun was hitting the empty crossover, and I was wondering what this whole new weekend would bring on, as my lungs breathing among the air of this very young breeze while walking onto the side of the land. It was Friday, by the golden time. The sun was falling onto these green hills, the warm clouds on this open window by my eyes. While my young, I reached the green hill and laid myself down to catch the big scenario displaying like a rose in bloom for my own satisfaction. The tallest trees, the empty town, and largest streets. As for me, nothing more amusing than just moving around over the wild breeze of summer air. By the time the night was already falling onto the ground, and I was staring at the latest ray of sunlight when the road caught up my mood. Some way, I had a reason to let myself emerge into this very young new adventure. I was young and made it curious, as my whole wonder kept on moving by my pockets, hanging and asking for a next move to fall onto the river of life and flow over the passage of days. It was need, a need to seek, a need to create, the intense feeling of wanderlust and freedom hanging in between every corner of this longest empty street. It must have been there, just like an old-time treasure, waiting for some dreamer's eyes to be found right in time, an instant ready for a chance. One who taps the light, always searching in between. And there it was a need, indeed, a necessary constant urge to ask and live, as my pretty young senses all awakened by the light of the sun. Guess I've probably been out there walking for many hours, the sound of the birds doing dances at the night around the tallest trees in town. Step by step, catch a breath and the brightest star. In the middle of the high hills, I'm standing, staring the velvet clouds already losing the track of time. Anyway, it was Friday, the stars upon my eyes, alive and curious to keep on walking. I guess it's somehow a call for a path. I managed to keep the track sticking in my boots on the tender grass right back to the streets, following the lights surrounding town. In the middle of the crossroad, I found two open paths to dip in. Yes, I remember that being just flowing by the lonesome town, but I was sure there was something out there, something out to explore, just a new journey in the tree of life. I was walking when I saw some light drawing onto the floor, or what it seems to be a reunion in front of my eyes, voices, and multiple instruments colliding in between. Sure, I managed to stare at the open door, incredibly enchanted by this whole new world suddenly meeting my eyes. When back then, "Hey, join us! Come on, get in," said a young guy who happened to be standing nearby the window. "In a boring night?" "Well, sort of," I said back. "Name's Tom," he said. From the inside of the building, the most bittersweet melody hanging among the air, as an incredible gift over the Friday mood, and just by the beginning of the moonlight, starting was the weekend, as my youngest wanderlust already in a deep amusement by that healing sound of an electric ancient guitar. "Theo, I'm Theo," I said back. As Tom seems to manage to get into the building, we follow the beautiful sound, a world through opening doors, and one time inside, plenty of faces surrounded by the latter warmest light. It was a group of young musicians, just following and creating their own rhythm. Dressed up in red velvet coats and golden pants, the mysterious sound dancing in between the fourth wall. One hanging note transforming the silence, and so the track of time. Open doors, open eyes. We were all just staring at their music was like a rainbow in the middle of the night. And so it begins. It might follow the Sulcan dance, the dance of life. Step by step and looking, and there's a door right up to my eyes, a curious door to wake your soul, and nothing more. But in the middle of the night, I find myself completely standing between a group of people with their thirsty souls as the music flows around to our imagination. I see the moonlight and there's a star in the middle of the place. I keep enjoying the view while the Friday night already fades away. Was nothing but just said, in the middle of the open road and in the middle of the open hills, I felt the curious feeling of the eternal dance as my soul prays in wonder for a surprise right to begin. And there's just how everything starts to follow the rhythm of their so-called wanderlust. I'm forever young. The latter light upon the faces, just a group of youngsters talking and laughing non-stop, the music mood, a collection of words flowing among the air, catch the so-called mood, and right in the club, the bright star, as one wide eye and a huge smile. Tom keeps walking nearby the scenario. His eyes are lost in the music. He follows the rhythm as the group of musicians shine like golden stars in the middle of the place. And it's the soft yet playful feeling of music upon the ears. As I keep staring perfectly amazed by the warm reunion, the midnight hanging upon us. Saturday is finally here as a new day. I float in wisdom as I keep on my search. Already in the reunion, a sweet harmony collides into our hearts in bloom. And just by the so-called curiosity, I look through the window. There is a wall upon this door, and I'm here waiting. So I get into my boots and walking back to the entrance, I redirect my eyes to all kind of different places. People and poems, poems and people. And I'm just here walking on my own, while young eyes must search it all. Through my past weekend wasn't that big entertainment, so when it comes to me, this Saturday already looks like a great journey, and I can't help but to feel deeply curious to follow the open road, to keep walking like a sailor in the middle of the sea, the adventure itself, the diversity of paths, and all those kind of questions. I guess that had always been a deep feeling, the wonder itself. And I've never been really interested in following any kind of routines, may I say. That will never con me in. Guided by the move of wonder, always moving around, always praying for some sort of surprise to appear. That just it. It had always been like that. From the old days back to the green grass garden. The birds flying all around, the rain falling onto the trees, the curiosity, it flows like a river perfectly in bloom. Castles made of sand and therefore always awaiting the long passage of time. Take me to the garden back again, so I can feel the breeze of the eternal sunset that can chap the rain. Tell me about the moon and the high hopes staring at the sky. Hope for a sacred path, a way of illumination, an extended road to the sun of my life. And I felt the time eternally preaching for young wanderlust. It called my name, and already blessed by the light of multiple stars, it did my promise. Yes, I did my promise. I will forever keep on with my wonder, as flowing amazed by the dance of life, accepting and proudly hoping for an adventurous journey. I was looking how the birds were flying away, in the immensity of the pink warmer clouds, when the bliss of light caught my heart. And that's how it all began. I did my study, but I dropped out the university. Indeed, my timing was already settled as a young explorer. So I am here right now, walking and just observing. The light on the club keeps me on gazing. Tom already embracing the dance with an expression of happiness drawn among his face. A group of girls making necklace of some shining material and smiling heavenly. I keep my walking to the door. Outside the night's call, and the empty street already makes me wonder about this brand new day upon my eyes. Therefore, I was always ready for new spontaneous plan. Long is the road, and awaking here I am. I don't want to leave the club, but the show seems to be ending, and Tom keeps walking towards me and invites me to meet him tomorrow by the sunset at the spotted hill. Coming back home, I walk the empty streets again by my own. I raise my head up to the stars. The night will end soon so I can see the light. Watching how the morning calls for the sun to rise up, I'm able to sense some kind of a brand new feeling of start, and opening the door. Oh, I'm just finally home. Saturday, 11 a.m. It's just by the first impression of my window and the smell of the air that I can see the sun of the such Saturday kicking at my door. And I walk right to the kitchen. As I prepare the first cup of coffee, I let myself down onto the sofa and see the sunlight softly caressing the Persian rug. My books all over the floor, and I grab this all by a nail and back to the ends and flowing around like a bird, spreading its wings. Through is that I'm here to keep on my path. My parents are out of town, catching up the blues and the whole mood. The summer is like a long journey to explore on, as roads to different places extending over my woods, alive and searching. Ancient melodies and God is in town. I'm walking down the streets, always walking on my mind, and grab my notebook and a pen. The whole experience is nothing more than a translated vision of glory, asking for ourselves to explore. And I open the door, all poets and researchers, asking was the traveler of the seven seas. Awaking was the poet, writing about people and lands, writers of wisdom breaking free. Just see it all in wisdom, just a little wander around town. And I'm just walking around again. As always, the sun shows me where to see. As it increases the wisdom, I keep on walking, deep into the glory of days as I choose to follow the streets guided by the sunlight. And I know that I'm just a seeker, praying for adventure, young, alive, and curious. It's nothing but a young Saturday afternoon, the green fields along the road, and I can feel the heat under my boots. I'm thinking about yesterday's reunion at the club. The music was incredibly amusing. The truth is that in my entire life, I probably met a long list of people indeed, but not too many curious people, and to be honest, I may have always been such a seeker when it comes to the wonder. Around questions and institutions, around people and towns, around books and letters, I'm always asking. So I'm on my afternoon walk, quiet, calm, and in silence. The town is already habitated by old constructions. 3:33 p.m. The building. It's 3:33 p.m. and I'm walking under the sun, just getting closer to the so-called field, land, and I can see the union of two streets gliding between the old-time boring bricks while I manage to keep on walking as I hear the sound of an antique violin, and I do nothing but to follow the sun, which leads me to a place where I see a long stairwell. The ancient roots, an old building indeed. Red curtains and a multiple collection of paintings among the walls, red velvet roof onto the floor, and I manage to follow the track of the open door. My curiosity grows inside. This is where all begins. A group of voices came from the upper room, and I obviously felt like a young kid running into the curiosity of a new land. And that was it. A giant clock above the stairwell, a clock made of sound, and I couldn't help but admire the incredible architecture extending in front of me. The building had mirrors where you could see the reflection of such giant stairwell. The surreal experience kept my presence already guiding me to follow my own wonder. And already intrigued, I kept the track onto a passage, a long path followed by red velvet curtains, the black and white chessed marble floor. Surely that was a big surprise for such afternoon. The path is long, and so the place appears to be like an old castle, the interior room like a collection of portals emerging from the walls. Choose just one between many doors. Choose one single door, a door to the illusion of time, just like life. I opened the door and I let myself in as my left hand matched the door handle, and I still following these violin sounds hanging among the air between this long walls passage. The door suddenly opens, leaving some noise onto the floor as it slides like a magic portal out there waiting for me to breathe onto this new kingdom. And I see the mirrored roof continuing on this room, and the sunlight, just like Latour, like an old Victorian painting, appeared to be falling all around the place, onto the floor, the Persian rug, with beautiful colors, and the golden strips matched the colors of the ambience, and I was staring at all the beauty of the place, when suddenly I noticed that all around the room there was 3 colored doors staring. And I was staring at the beauty of the place when suddenly I noticed that all around the room was 3 colored doors, like 3 portals onto the place, colliding into this main one. Red, blue, and yellow, like an exquisite banquet of paths to new directions, to other dimensions, the smell of spring onto the room, a rainbow circle onto the floor, light up the rays of light like an interior sun, warming up the colors of this magical roulette. It was an incredible surprise to me. Indeed it was. I couldn't be better. Yeah, it couldn't be better. The instant feeling of paradise, the colors of such room praising my soul, while the mirror reflecting the emotions in my heart, like a sudden ray of glitter and serpentines. I was there, staring at the whole room, what it seems to be a treasure land. And so, after my walk under the sun, I sensed the color of the rainbow, as I can't help but to ask about the 3 colored doors, walls, and I felt violin sounds getting softly each time and reminding me to go back to the entrance as I did my last review of such beautiful paradise one more time to conquer the feeling of the colors inside and finally prepared to move away. I managed to open the door, walking along the long passage over and over again, guided by the reflection of mirrored roof and nearby the stairwell. Already near the main entrance, I was just to go out from the building when I felt the strange presence of someone staring at my back. 1 foot right into the streets and turning back around, I saw a man standing in silence, raising his left hand into the air, and just like a sparkle of last-minute presentation, he drew a well greeting onto the ambience while waving my hand in reply. I saw his sudden soft smile as he managed to stay in silence while I continued my track. Outside the building. It's nearly late afternoon outside the building, and doing my everyday walk, the pink-red clouds starts to fall down, reminding me that the night is about to come. Amazed, I'm breathing as I continue my wander among the path, and I can't help but to replay in my head the beautiful reflections of those color tones into my eyes, the largest stairwell and the longest chest path, the eternal collections of rooms and doors, the main one that I stare at. As long as I'm walking, I can feel the magic image of such colored doors, like 3 portals colliding one next to the other. The velvet red curtains. I was feeling the breeze when I felt his presence behind my back. Guess I was just a guest in town. As I continue my trip to the so-called mystery, I'm deeply amused by the seconds of that paradise, and so, like a rose in bloom by the light of the sun, I follow the impulse to my wonder, the never-ending circle of adventures and passage of time. So I'm walking once again in this late afternoon. I kept my wonder into my pockets as I feel like a bird flying out there in the middle of the open road. Soon it will be the evening, and I promised Tom to meet right up to the hills for a fun night. Walking on the hills, I raised up my head and admiring the beauty of the pink-red floating clouds, I let myself fall into this moment of wisdom. And watching the colors of the sky, as waiting for Tom to appear, I can see a collection of imaginary ancient animals drawing among the sky like cotton-made clouds, while I wait for the night to fall down. As I feel the fresh air caressing the green land, after a couple of minutes, I see Tom followed by a group of other young people running up to the hill to match the track. His smile is big and his curls are dancing over the air, and I feel the atmosphere like a dream as the others introduce themselves. "Hoping for a fun night?" said Tom, while sitting on the grass. "May we catch the moonlight tonight?" "Indeed," I replied, "we will." "We have to," Tom continued while laughing. The other young kings and queens were staring at us, since our world seems to be swinging on the air, joking around. "How did you guys meet?" said a girl. Her name was Anastasia, but she preferred to be called just Anna. "How we met?" said Tom, kind of joking, his wild eyes pointing at mine like waiting for my reply. I just stood in silence waiting for Tom's response as he managed to smile and look to the rest of the other faces. Well, dearly well," Tom finally said. "It is said that a late night came to us with a bunch of surprises, don't you think, Theo?" I couldn't help but laugh. His ingenious reply was somehow a way to joke non-stop and skip the question. "We met on the main door of the club," he said. "Right, Theo?" "Yeah, that's it," I said back. "That's how I'll start, guys," said one of the rest. "What do you mean?" I asked. I obviously was curious about his words. "Tom is a door seeker. He's like an owl, always looking and walking around the club. That's what I meant," said the guy with an enormous smile. He introduced himself as John. Both Anastasia and John were siblings. Their blonde hair and porcelain skin delighted in contrast with the dark clothes. As for Tom, his golden curls and dark, starry eyes suddenly gave a huge smoke. "Just a door seeker," he repeated. To be honest, the conversation intrigued me. And sure, by my view, curiosity was already begging for more doors to be opened. Tom lied down onto the grass back again. Another girl named Grace had indeed one of the most beautiful and mysterious faces I ever seen. Her dark hair, softly caressing the top of her cheeks, her pale skin and hazel eyes appeared to be adorned by her dark eyebrows. She was standing gazing her eyes in many directions while holding a book into her hands, sliding page to page as one way to avoid the conversation. As for the mystery already settled, soon was the night, and soon the sky and the brightest star will remind us to go around the largest roads, out for a vital night of surprises and events to keep on motion. Just by a couple of minutes, just by the sound of dancing trees, the evening welcoming the night came onto us, and so we knew it was time to move on, right to the adventures. John said there was a band playing at the club. After the long walk, we managed to reach the place. The warm light at the door and the so-called reunion invited me to continue the rhythm of the club. And so it is, and so it was, and so it will forever be. We sure got in, and we wanted to hear some music. The club was a nice place indeed, and everyone appeared to be having a nice time. From artists, musicians, and just youth all the way around. We keep on walking to the next few hours until the rhythm of the instruments were vanishing to announce the end of the show. We managed to take a breath, appreciate the beautiful journey, and path by path, step by step, each one came back to their houses. Time to say goodnight. Sunday. Morning has come. Sunday is here. And through the window, the light wakes me up to show me the brand new melodies of the majestic blackbird that might have been singing for a long time. And I stare at the window, the green land, and I get from bed and walk to have my first cup of coffee in the morning. The sun, the empty field, and the calm of the outside. The calm, yes, the beautiful breath of morning, and the day starts its journey. The sun rises up, and you can see Yonsika. As I walk onto the outside holding my coffee into my hands, I let myself flow and sit by the garden. Lying myself down to the grass, I wonder about the curious visit onto the building, that mystery colorful place that I've been, the never-ending stairwell, the strange presence of that man right to my back, and his sudden smile. And I just step by step, the delightful room, the long path, the beautiful colorings to the room, the rainbow by the floor, the circle, yes, the circle itself, minute by minute among this soft breeze. But what about the man? What about the long stairwell? What about the main door? The place was just like an ancient treasure in between. As I drank my whole coffee, I keep on thinking, and I look at the sun as I happen to see my curiosity expanding. So the world appears to be somehow bigger, just bigger than it seems. The sun approximates its own direction to the middle day, and I get up from the grass and prepare myself for a new day trip, deep in wonder, and by the wonder itself, I let myself go. I feel the start of a new day upon my head, walking straight out to the cloud. I feel the start of a new day upon my head, walking straight out of the house, the empty road, the reflecting sun on the streets. I feel in motion. 11 a.m., the tallest trees by road. Welcome to this side of the land. The town looks even more beautiful than just staring at the old constructions, at the wide streets. Right out to the left, walking and just walking again, I somehow sense this will be a special day. Suddenly back to this strange building, back to the main entrance. I know, I get inside the building. The waiting room must be the most beautiful place I ever seen. And so back in front of the stairwell, standing in the middle of the salon, I'm looking in silence. Anyone there? Such a mysterious land. The delicate velvet curtains. At this time, I know that I'm here to explore it all. Transcending the mirrors, transcending the paradise. As the light through the colored glass, the beautiful decoration, the pieces of antique art. And so I follow my curiosity once again. The long stairwell, step by step, an awakening. In front of my eyes, I found the image of a magnificent bird on the middle of the wall. Right between two columns, the red carpet onto the floor slides like an infinite path in the middle of a desert, guiding me to some kind of golden land. And I guess I can't help but to say that I'm incredibly curious about this building, so I follow the stairwell as it guides me inside this building, this new enormous land. The walls, the paintings, the antique architecture, and so the mirror roof is still in wonder. How this place will create such atmosphere? What will be the reason? And I remember the first day that I met this place. Such a strange luck I had. The long path and the colored doors. Choose one door, red like fire, blue like moonlight, and yellow like the sun. The circle in the middle of the place, the one that looked like rainbow. But what did it mean? I was walking around, amused by the beauty of such place, when just like a surprise at the door, I felt the presence back again. The sudden experience of this eccentric feeling rising through my mind. The man was standing at the back of the door. He had an expression of doubt on his face. He must have thought that I was like a tourist in that place. But anyway, I was just here to explore. Welcome, new guest, he said to me. His voice had a strange tone. And while I was just thinking about my response, it happened to notice that the man was staring at me all the time while I was walking around. The thing is that I was just a guest. Indeed, I was. Beller said, I was just there out of my own curiosity. The man was staring in silence. Guess he wanted to know more about me. A new guest? I said back to him. He moved closer, raised up his fingers, and pointed at the sunlight by the roof. A new guest, he repeated. I kept in silence. I must be teaching you, he said, as he invited me to follow him, as walking right to the doorway. He managed to walk upon the red carpet passage while I followed him in silence. Reaching the stairwell nearby the entrance of the building, he suddenly spoke. You might open the door. And so I did. I just opened the door of my curiosity. How did you find the place? He asked me. I told him that I was walking around. I just told him the truth. I was curious. His eyebrow raised in such a way, and so by the stairwell I saw the figure of two columns rising like an ancient gateway to the sky upon the black and white chess floor. The man continued his walk upon the building, and just standing between two columns he invited me to join at the chess game, onto the antique table, the wooden pieces of chess, the game itself, the tricks, the black and white board just like the floor. Pieces to move around. The red velvet curtains all around, piece by after piece, the odd smell in the air, the light coming through the windows. Just a new guest. I happened to stare at the bare figure nearby the wall. It had a beautiful glow, and it was just like a brief of moment connecting me to the magic of new events displaying around. The game was getting long, and no clocks were hanging on that side of the building, just a circle holding translucent sphere inside, which seems to be pending and floating into the atmosphere itself. Indeed, the place was like a strange treasure. Not to even mention my repeating urge to explore any single cornerstone of that building. I felt somehow weird by the idea of that place. I was staring at the chess pieces when I felt the men looking at me. Somehow, everything was intriguing. Still in wonder? The man asked. He seems to be trying to guess my mood. I continued looking at him in silence. As the corner of his mouth drew a smile side to side, he seems to know about my curiosity. Fair enough, I said back to him. For a couple of minutes, the man stood in silence. He closed up the chess game and said, Come back another day. His mysterious words came onto my direction in a deep hurry. I continued to walk right to the main door entrance. Suddenly, I was at the empty streets back again, walking onto my boots. And here I am, and there was and I will forever be, just walking and thinking. And I can't do anything more than just replaying the chess game and the entire talk with the man. He was strange, and I wanted to know more about the place. But who was him? Anyway, I can't wait to meet Tom and tell him everything. Of course I wanted to share with him the delightful journey of such building. But maybe not. Evening hours, night came, so I decided it was time to go back home. I spent the whole night wondering about such odd place. But anyway, after all, I somehow had the strange feeling that something was just about to start. Monday. Awaken is the sun as I get up and walk right to the kitchen to make my first coffee. Right after having breakfast, I decide to go for a walk down the fields, and I see the figure of Thomas lay down onto the grass. What are you dreaming of? I said back to him. Hey Theo, join me, he said back. He was pretty calm. Daydreaming, Theo? He continued, was still looking at the clouds. Tuesday. Walking around town, I meet the magic building, the mystery lane. And it's just in this young morning when I can do no other thing but to get in, back again, to this curious place. And it's just by the sun of the 3:33 p.m. where I can really see. I somehow let myself flow and my wisdom grow. I stared at the door when I listened to the voice of a strange man talking in some unknown language that already sounded like a blessing. Already across the door, the main entrance, he noticed my steps while I was reaching the stairwell. I saw the figure of such enchanting halo levitating right in front of his eyes, and just by the afternoon, I felt somehow overwhelmed by many feelings of surprise. The man was staring at the bright and halo when he said, "In wisdom we seek." The whole situation got me pretty concentrated. The man happened to move his fingers, and while pointing at the halo, opening his hands, he even looked as if he was trying to reach some kind of majestic blessing, and just by the moment I felt somehow how incredible magic was the place and the so-called brick magical building. I reached my conclusion that the place held some kind of mystery, indeed. After a couple of minutes, just by the silent rain of calm, the man looked at me. His eyes were glowing like the halo, and I guessed he must have felt the wisdom from such enchanting light. Anyway, I was wondering what the halo was about. But not only the halo was a mystery, the speech of that man got me intrigued. What he was saying. We stood for a moment in silence. It was exactly in that moment when one of the doors suddenly opened and we heard nothing but the steps of someone walking up to my direction. "Afternoon daylight vision," said another man who joined us. Daylight, said the other. "Halo," repeated the man who recently joined us. "Halo in wisdom," both said. The ultimate word resonated upon the fourth walls, and I was just there, in between, in the building of my curiosity. Somehow, like an outsider, I was staring at the whole events in front of my eyes. Both of the men were wearing long tunics with golden details. Indeed, it was pretty curious, not to even mention the strange language they seemed to talk. Both of the men walked to the stairwell while looking at the window, and while I was admiring the whole scene, I happened to realize the bird figure just in the middle of the stairwell. There was something pretty odd. The bird figure seems to change its direction, like some type of magic was done over the bird. And that was it. Of course it was. I managed to keep my questions for myself, even if the event was odd enough to keep on asking. I just stood looking at the bird, completely amazed in silence. Everything was entertaining there, but that wouldn't be the perfect word to describe the place. It was beyond amusing and oddly enchanting, and even though I was just an outsider, I was a seeker, if you know what I mean. I was there to understand something, or at least to think through. I love being curious enough to wonder about some sort of magic or some sort of metaphysic development around existence. Otherwise everything will be too dull and plain. And I wasn't like that. I wanted to believe in something, at least to keep on searching, since I was young enough and madly curious. And there I was, in the enchanted building, nothing but the rhythm of sunlight cursing our eyelashes, the bird already transformed by some sort of alchemy colliding in such place. A secret halo, an antique melody that only the bird and the instruments will understand. But in my excitement, I was there, as I said, enchanted. "Halo, right time," they said. Of course they thought that I wouldn't understand anything, so I actually didn't, but I was learning something. The reason must have been over the halo, some sort of magic happening in front of my eyes, and I just wanted to decode it. Anyway, the place continued to appear more and more enchanting, and by the time, it was not only the wonder but a deep of desire to explore the whole land. "Choose the color to breathe on," said the man responsible for the halo. He appeared to be older than the other man who recently joined us. The first man that I firstly met seemed to be a guardian or something like that. He looked like a keykeeper at a long building. He really never introduced himself. None of them said anything, and they never asked my name. That called my attention indeed. And what about the robes that they were wearing, the black tunics, not to mention the old-time language they seemed to speak really well, like some sort of Latin but mixed, I'm not sure. But I was there intrigued. I wanted to know new perspectives, or at least something not so common. I was just exactly bored of life. Or maybe not. I wasn't exactly bored of life. I was just curious. It was nearby 3 p.m. when the younger man finally said, "You see, the new formula you brought about, I read it, and as for my eyes could see, I reached to the conclusion that it seems to be pretty well explained. Beneath the colored crystals, reading the numbers, now I can see, yes, I can see it. It seems accurate enough." The man was some kind of dancing his tongue out with his words, while turning his head side to side. His eyes appeared to find nothing but the figure of that bird already transformed, shining in golden reflections to the mirrored walls and colored windows. Surprisingly, he did no other but saying, "In wisdom." His eyes looked like two enormous moons, suddenly pale and shining with the most brilliant sparkle. As for me, still quiet, nothing but staring at the bare figure, until I also said, "In wisdom." I saw the eyes of both men suddenly into big emotions, staring at the magic halo that seems to reign over the bird. There was no doubt that it was a mystery, the transformation of the bird, and the words that the men were saying seemed like an enchanting praying of an interesting language that they only could understand, and I wanted to know, sure I wanted to know. My eyes had never seen something like that, as for my mind, already delighted. I wasn't the only one enchanted by the transformation of the bird. Those two men seemed to be pretty moved by the magic. And in the middle of the moment, I was there when I noticed a small ball, bright and reflecting an amount of golden light by the middle of the salon. "Wisdom," they both said. And so by the minutes with the happiness of that magical event, they invited me to play nothing but a match of chess while talking any kind of mystical wonders and philosophy. They seemed to be very well spoken. Their conversations will make you feel invited to the so-called wonder of asking for a meaning or just exploring beyond words, and I was there to admire everything. Since a child, I always found me intrigued by new ideas. Just a single option of asking me for knowledge appeared to me the most beautiful fruit that I forever bit on. "As you happen to join the place," suddenly said the young man, "may I ask you if there's anything that called your attention?" Both of the men were staring at me, this time with an enormous curiosity. Well, I was kind of thinking my answer when I finally said, "The place called my attention. The place itself is pretty interesting." "The place?" the man said. "Yes, everything," I said back in some sort of shy answer. Both of them continued to move the chess pieces onto the black and white board, praying about kings and queens, and we talked about art, revolutionary ideas, history, and human faith. I was enchanted by the words resonating in my ears. The intense question while moving the chess pieces seemed fun. The afternoon continued at the rhythm of the language games and smart talks, and so the place was covered in a warm breeze. Sure, I was delighted by the mystery land. If you happen to be curious by nature, that place was a magic wonder. And right after my words and chess games, we walked to the hall quietly in silence. Both of these mystery men gave me a short "see you soon" cheerful greeting. Back home once again, I was astonished, thinking about everything, delighted, enchanted, happy, and pretty excited for tomorrow. The calm night was beautiful, till next morning sun. Wednesday. Golden birds singing between the trees. 11:11. Opening my eyes, the smell of the green grass across the window, the smell of a new day awakening onto the horizon, the golden stars shining onto the ladder. I go for my walk right at the kitchen, grab my very first cup of coffee of the day. I open the windows and think about Tom. I choose to go for a walk in the fields. In the middle of the road, I smell the rain, like a big ocean coming through the clouds. And onto my boots, in the middle of new paths, the rain started falling, and I couldn't stop thinking about the magic bird upon the enchanting building. Reaching the hills, I see Tom holding a book onto his knees, sitting on the grass and reading. I lay down beside him, and while Thomas waves a handshake over the air, He looked quite interesting. I mean, his eyes were looking all over the place, and he held a curious rule upon his hands, a golden rule, golden like the sun. What is that? Over your notebook, I asked him. Numbers, Tom said. Nothing but numbers. What about your days, my friend? He asked, quite changing the topic. Wonderful, I replied. He was heavily into math and science. He had many exercises into his notebook, but some of them seemed quite out of commonplace. As for the golden rule, it was strange. While he managed to tell me, it was one of the most unexpected things from him to carry onto his pockets, but it gave him some sort of good luck. The rain was still falling down, and Tom kept on talking, telling me everything about his early days and his curiosity upon numbers. He believed that numbers rule nature, and believed numerology was some kind of magic glory, so he loved studying it. He believed in codes and coordinates, you know. It was odd, but interesting to hear him talk. I couldn't help but feeling delighted by his intelligence as a reflection of his inner curiosity and human search. And so after a couple of minutes between the wavy trees, the early afternoon evaporated itself among the sudden cold weather, the fresh air on the middle of this wild summer. Thomas, who was sitting there for a long time, decided it was good time for a coffee talk, so standing up with the black book and the golden rule into his hands, he invited me to go for a place he used to adore. We walked upon the wind for a couple of times, and moving, stepping onto the streets, the city was looking as pale as empty as possible. And so on, this Wednesday middle week. This was such a calm pause after many interesting events. A brief of moments to enjoy a repentant cozy feeling of a meal in the intense rain. We reached the door. The coffee store looked like an antique English building. It had dark brown bricks, and the wooden door was decorated by some kind of bronze fine art deco, and the music seems to be a good host upon the place. We sat at a small oval table nearby the window while Tom asked for a cup of coffee, and moving his hands like a happy expressive kid, he told me to choose for the perfect piece of cake to start with. The coffee store was also a bookstore, which made it more interesting. We stood there for some hours until we made our way back to the fields. The grass was wet, and the rain was still falling over the sunset. Tom, who liked to be funny, started jumping all around with his book onto his hands, and waving the golden rule into his left hand, he shouted the coordinates of the place we were staying just for fun, just for the hell of it. I couldn't help but laugh. Until he said something that got my attention. He pointed the golden rule to the sun and said, "In wisdom." It was odd, you know, since he seems to say something similar to the man in the enchanted building. I remember walking in such mysterious mood that evening. My comeback was already soon, as for many events to decode, my curiosity was on rise. I made my way back home, thinking. Thursday. It was 8 a.m. when I woke up. The alarm clock seems to sound louder than ever. I walked back to the fields where I met Tom, John, and Anastasia. Both of the siblings were studying literature. Tom told me about Grace. That girl already looked pretty introvert. You know, as an introvert itself, I can recognize another introvert. Tom said Grace was studying astrology, literature, and all numerology too. That's why she always had this mysterious book upon his hands. He also said she was one of the most intelligent girls out of their college. She will never study, you know, yet she will always reach the best grades at the exams. Grace always wore dark clothes and sat at the back of the classroom. So I stood for a time upon the fields until I walked to the enchanting building. I did my curious entrance once again through the red curtains, the mystery rainbow room, the three-colored doors, red, blue, and yellow, the mirrored roof, the circle like a rainbow over the floor, the color ray of light coming through the windows. 9 a.m. 9 a.m. The morning was reflecting the light upon the bricked building entrance. I know that I'm following my curiosity as it's leading me to new places I've been looking for. And I see nothing but a bunch of pale roses by the figure of the bird. I keep staring in silence, walking to the colored room, 3 colored doors, the ancient language. Brilliant sparkles of rising sun over the black and white floor. The door is half open, and I walk towards it, to do no other than enter the magical room in some sort of discovery. And once I'm in, the smell of roses all over the place. The color light painting the room in such warm rays across the window, and I stare at the 3 doors, while the rainbow by the center of the room calls my attention. And just when I was walking upon one of the doors, I see the reflection of some sort of halo back again upon the air, and I remember yesterday's vision. You know, Thomas jumping on the fields while waving his hands onto the sunset, and the rainbow upon his face. I was also wondering about the doors. Them seems to be like portals in the middle of the room, and I wanted to know more. It was just in the moment when I heard the door opening by my back. I turned around and saw the old wise man standing in silence, watching me completely puzzled as I already concerned by these odd reflections. He stood quiet for some seconds, and right after the old glance, he stepped into the room, closing the door in a loud gasp. He remained to stay quiet, looking exactly as an owl, no wonder left around. I did no other thing than staring. Minutes passed by, and I was feeling quite strange with his quiet company when he suddenly said, "Morning." "Morning," I replied. The man walked right to the window, and after opening it, he walked back to the rainbow direction while holding something upon his hands. He happened to move the transparent ball upon the colored rainbow circle. "In wisdom, as we seek in, is nothing but a choice to explore beyond," said the old man. I was looking how a halo surrounded the ball. The man was standing looking at the ball too. He seemed concentrated while dressing in black robes. I did no other thing than staring at him. The whole place got me curious like a kid. What was the whole golden bird transformation about? And what is this transparent ball in the middle of the rainbow floor? Why? Last time I saw this ball, it was golden, shining like a bird, and now it's transparent. We stood in silence. The window was open, the light stepping onto the faces, the colors of the room reflecting the clarity of the sun, the day awaiting. As the man sat down by the side of the room looking directly at the ball, I also sat down. Joining the calm of the warm-colored reflections, I also looked at the ball like some sort of mystery was about to happen. I was listening, the sound of the tallest trees waving outside the atmosphere became the most intriguing thing happening through all my senses. Staring at the small transparent ball, seeing it in front of the old man, nothing but just an amount of sparkles were painting the ball in such a golden ray of light, it even looked like an interior sun. Suddenly, the small ball started reflecting all the colors of the rainbow until becoming entirely golden, one small golden sphere, like an ancient stone. The ambience suddenly turned as warm as the solid ball, and right across the sparkles, I began to notice how the eyes of the man were staring at the light until he gave me an intense look, and I saw the golden ball floating onto my direction. As incredibly amused, I felt some kind of an enchanting astonishment, mixed with an enormous wanderlust evaporating through the air, and it was just a magnificent moment when the old wise man who happened to be in front of me, across the light, he managed to say, "Eternalis, Eternalis." And so he gave me one short smile as he happened to watch the ball floating all around my eyes. Seconds of warm sun, something among the air, smelled different, as incredible transformation of the interior light was painting the whole room in golden tones, just like a sunset. The golden ball came back to the middle of the rainbow circle, the old wise man looking at me with a vague smile. It was such a wonder. As I wanted to know what he was talking about, I felt the middle of the day reaching nothing but the sunset hour. Eternalis. The small ball upon the window started levitating. This time, I saw how the light seemed to dance around the ball in such a magical way. The wise man looked at me and I looked at him, this time in wisdom. "Tell me one color," he said. "Red," I replied. Right in the middle of the room, one of the doors opened, the red one. Eternalist in wisdom, the man said. I saw nothing but the magnificent bird figure expanding its wings and flying into the interior of that open red door. Halo time, as brilliant as the sunlight, just in the middle of the circlet rainbows. The wise man happened to be completely puzzled. His eyes seemed to be trying to decode nothing but the beauty of that particular extraordinary situation. And I wanted to know, oh yes, I wanted to know more. The red door opening as a magical doorway as from both of my eyes blooming such intense ray of light. I kept staring, and by the interior of that majestic door, pretty open, I wanted to see how incredible was the bird. Nothing but radiating the rainbow colors through its wings. It was just in that brief of moment when I saw the small transparent ball again, levitating and sparkling, and this time in all colors as reaching the circle just by the rainbow. I happened to look hopefully concentrated, how mystical everything was in that place. The old man was staring in silence, and I felt something incredible odd, but terrible enchanting. The man, he directed a wide smile, and I knew, somehow I knew, that I was there for a reason. And walking to the circle rainbow, he raised up his finger and said, Our room. The whole room was warm as one sun, as if there was nothing but the sunset falling down our direction. Rays coming in colors, reflections across the mirrored roof, as the sky was merging down the horizon, and the beautiful room once transformed in such a beloved garden, a delightful sun. As interesting as science, this time the man was looking at me in such a delicate smile, and he seems to be welcoming. Thursday went fast as the thunder, and for my curious entertainment, the whole building extending onto my feet, full of new passages to explore. Step by step, such a mysterious land. The black and white floor always there to remind me about the chess game. Intelligent pieces sliding with such a gentle rhythm. The long curtains cursing the floor, red as the door I suddenly opened. The dark architecture painting the space, and one there is desire to translate the splendor of the beauty. And I could hear some strange voices following some sort of rhythm, like an old mantra, increase over the silence. And once we reached the place, a group of people reunited in circle wearing white long robes, almost like tunics, long hanging onto their faces. Sure, the place was nothing but a continuous mystery, pretty much indeed. It never stopped to amaze me. The wise men joined the circle, giving me a direct glance, sort of an invitation to join them as well. Halo, in wisdom. We stood in silence. We left the hard place and walked to the hall. Walking again through the long passage, the wise man sat down to the chess game table, and nearby the bird sculptor he said, What you have seen? And suddenly, I heard some steps behind me. The man who was speaking suddenly slid his looks over my shoulders, and there were two people standing in silence wearing the white robes. Time, the man said. And just like that, these two people standing just there, they walked away in nothing but a remote silence, and I was puzzled. Not only for what recently happened to attend, but everything in the place was already intriguing. So I said, Time? What is time here if you have no clocks? The man seemed interested in my question, as he managed to reply with an eloquent tone. As I guess you have probably noticed, we have no clocks in here. As well, time, time is just a simple construction of matter, I add. The man smiled at me. What are you thinking here? May I ask? He said. I stood in silence for some seconds, and just by the air, I said, Wisdom, I seek wisdom. Right, the man continued. As we tend to ask with our souls, we know for sure what it takes to navigate in wonder. What it takes, I repeat. As you may have noticed, time happens to float in an ethereal form on the outside of the door. You get what I'm saying, the man continued. Sure, I replied. Well, we love humanity and we know about social constructions and forms, but here, time is just some sort of an eternal search, he said. So, time, what about the everyday world? I asked him. He did not reply, but he gave me one big smile in which I somehow felt it was enough to keep my wonder opened. Then he stood and taking out the white robe, dressed all in black, he gave me his hand, and walking to the door, he invited me to reunite on the next Saturday night at the building. I walked away from that mystery land, this time blooming in wild colors from the bottom of my heart. I knew there was something feeding my unstoppable wandering. I can't help but to feel my biggest attention growing inside. A third day continues to pass by reaching the horizon. Walking on the open road, I was just nearby the green fields. Walking back home, as I do nothing but admire the beauty that extends by the nature of human wonder. And once I'm home, I'm open the window, night has come, and yes, I'm thinking about everything. Friday. Looking at the window, the same green grass. 11 a.m. under the sun. I'm doing my walk once again. Back to the streets, back to the green fields, step by step until I meet Thomas on his favorite spot, up in the hills. He's got his black book and his pale face reflects the morning in this large city. As I'm reaching the spot, I came to notice not only the black book upon his hands, but the way he's pointing at the ground with his golden rule. Thomas and his mad ideas. His eyes deep staring at the open sky, and he gives me his book as I grab it totally curious by his mannerism. So it's 12 p.m. on that Friday by the hills, and everything seems changed now. A sudden storm appears, and after a couple of minutes, a giant rainbow appears through the rain. Day passed by until the very Saturday. Yellow breeze of honey increasing on the wind. Saturday has arrived. Standing up at the early day, I came to remember today is the day where I ought to be at the enchanting building. Saturday night, said the wise man. Remember? So, walking back to the fields, I see Thomas and the group sitting down the grass in the middle of the hill. They call my name, so I joined them. They were talking non-stop and joking all around. The twins, Anastasia and Tom, look eventually quirky as usual, and Grace, who is listening to everything in silence, just stood there staring quietly. We spent the day studying about all numerology and math, doing all type of questions, while Thomas vaguely dancing upon this topic he seems to adore. The evening was falling, so I did my way back home thinking about the invitation that I got to the building. It was just around 10 p.m. when I decided to move on, and I reached the brick enchanting all mystery land. It was just in the little seconds ahead the entrance when I seemed to hear one delicate tone of voice softly whispering around the ambience. And it didn't last much, but I noticed the door opening in front of me. 5 minutes to 11 o'clock by the invisible clock. Standing like an owl in the middle of the stairwell, the smell of a bunch of roses by the ambience. After a couple of seconds I realized no one catched the hall. So I was wondering, what about the rest of the people? I slid across the stairwell, nearby the big vert sculptured figure. A door suddenly opened. The old wise man, his friend, and another group of people were looking at the door. Wishful guests, whose hearts open, the old man said. One soft sonata emerging once again from the interior of the three-colored doorways by the room's walls. Red, blue, and yellow, as I can't help but to feel the mysterious breeze and those people's faces frozen looking at the doorways. The wise man raised up his eyebrows, and this time, standing by the middle of the circle rainbow, he spread his arms, giving me nothing but the transparent ball, as looking me in an odd glance. I held this sphere, this small transparent ball into my hands. The three-colored doors open, where the small ball shines the rainbow colors, lining all the faces, as though I can see this time that the wise man was incredibly astonished, standing in front of me. I turned around my head by the three colored doors. As these four people, dressed in long robes, their Venetian masks glowed the light of the rainbow as I hold a small sphere. Guess now I can see. As I can feel the enormous mystery increasing through the air, something unexpected. The sound of a well-known harmony, these four people walking from the inner of the three colored doors to the center of the room. The old wise men looking like an owl surprised by the seconds upon our eyes. And I walked right to the center and put the small sphere in this perfect circle rainbow, and I somehow sensed the feeling of an old known presence looking at the Venetian mask, the light of the ball illuminating their eyes as glowing stars, and I am here in wonder. They softly moved their faces side by side as they appeared to share a mutual gesture. Standing up, they walked out of the room through the long passage, the red curtains, the mirror roof. Reaching the center of the building, nearby the stairwell, the presence of the giant bird sculpture, one sonata for your blessings as the old wise man happens to put the small rainbow ball upon the bird figure. And it's just there when I hardly reach the image of an extending garden, green and colored by red roses springing through the ambience, like a magical constellation of particles among the air, and both of the wise men sitting side by side of the bird sculptor. I watched the way these groups of four people stand upon the stairwell, looking at the main door. Everyone is looking at the entrance. The whole place was covered in water, just like a sacred river flowing among the building. "What time's it?" said the old wise man. He gave me one of those looks, and already feeling the water on my feet, I finally said, "Eternalis, in wisdom." Suddenly the door was covered in rainbow colors, multiple stars floating at all directions, the mirrored roof reflecting the light, and the bird figure seems to be awakened. The bird flying on the incredible garden, like an enchanting muse. These four people standing in silence. "Ask and you will be enlightened," said one of the men. I was looking the way the bird seems to be flying in some act of enchanting cosmogony. Both of the men suddenly stood up, raising both of their arms and waving them softly through the air, as trying to reach the magnificent bird. It was just in that moment when I felt the odd presence, a well-known surprise up there to be. The old man invited me to follow the bird, as I was staring puzzled by the nature of those magical events. Following this bird figure, reaching the rainbow-colored room, one more time in wisdom, I see the bird flying across the window, like an enchanting phoenix that finally came to life. I felt shivers. It was beautiful yet incredibly amusing. "In wisdom," both of the men said. Visions of the rainbow, the light emerging from their eyes. It was just in that minute when I got the oddly feeling of a well-known mystery sliding through the air. And so it was. Thomas, the twins, and Grace for the sole purpose of my eyes. Both of the twins staring at me in such joy, standing at the yellow door, Grace on the blue door, and Thomas on the red one. The three colored doors opened, and all of this magic all around. The bird came back to the building through the window and giving a whole dance by the middle of the big halo. "Phoenix!" they shout. Upon my starry eyes, the whole room seemed like an enchanted garden, a magically welcome to another sort of wisdom, like an ancient one, a sacred garden, like a doorway to some magical kingdom. The three colored doors opening and closing and stopped. The small sphere now totally golden, sparkling in the warmest tone. As my recent well-known researchers, Thomas, Grace, and the siblings were also seekers in between. You know they were also part of this searching, as they seemed to be invited to the building. Thomas was smiling, holding his golden rule and pointing it to the bird. Anastasia and John were removing their Venetian mask. The two wise men looking at us, they joined a joyful talk. And it was just by the wonder that I managed to meet the place. I guess that's how you get into this so-called building. As the Sunday appeared to meet us in the middle of our searching. And so here I am, walking upon the streets. The town is looking even more beautiful with the passage of the days. I was in the middle of the road. The sun was hitting the empty crossover, and I was wondering what this whole new weekend will carry on. When that just seems to be an echo of such majestic magic there on the building. I nearly got the impression that I was walking in front of the place once again when I saw two people staring at the large streets while talking. And the man was saying something to the woman, something that sounded like, "There is no open door to another kingdom. You know, there is no magic out there to seek. What are you talking about?" And so I was staring completely astonished by his words, the stormy air on the porch of the house, the bitter sweet taste onto his breath, like something was missing out of his statement. "Yes, you can meet new kingdoms if you believe in magic," I said to them. They looked at me strange. I was searching for the place once again. The building, on the streets. I was searching for the old brick enchanting blend to show them the magic upon the place. "This must be the place," I said. The man on the street kept on staring at me while saying, "There's nothing there, kid." I couldn't help but standing in front of his eyes. Suddenly, these two butterflies sliding through my fingers. I felt the incredible breeze like a door right in between. I did 2 steps along the streets while returning, when I found the place in front of such big house, like a magical second of luck. And so I turned my head back to the man and the woman, but they disappeared, just in seconds, like a magical halo. And so it was, and it may always be like that, always in circle, this long path, an open door, awaiting for me, awaiting for you to get in. "5 seconds under the sun, these 2 butterflies sliding through the air, a sense of purpose. I managed to walk upon the building. This time, I know that I mean wisdom, and I know what it might mean. As they pass by, I realized you always begin by the wonder, and it's just by the magic of curiosity that our lives make some meaning. And I'm walking under the sun, while I managed to slide to the old brick building, as everything's changed now, and there's some sense of glory onto this side of the land. There's something deeper than meets the eye, something beyond to keep on searching, and I'm walking on the black and white floor as I manage to move the chess pieces. And I know yesterday I was a beginner, and today I'm here, already delighted by the wisdom of the days. And I'm walking, doing my entrance upon the long stairwell, and I see Thomas, Grace, Anastasia, and John putting on their Venetian mask while they give me one to join them. We are wearing white tunics, and we are walking upon the stairwell. The sun is messing with my eyes. I know there must be something out there, otherwise the existence will be too boring. But I cannot explain it to you if you don't want to believe. You just have to experience it. Like an old-time pretender, just move around your questions and keep on searching. A group of wise men joining us. It's 2:22 p.m. and I know the FÉNIX might be waiting for us to catch a glimpse of this delightful splendor. And you just need to believe. I guess I understand now why Thomas always believed in numerology. He always wanted to explore it all. Science was not enough to the wonder. Grace was also into the rhythm of magic wonder, and they also knew that I was too, but they never invited me. I was never invited to that building. I invited myself alone. I invited to follow my curiosity that dragged me into this big antique place full of sacred wisdom. And just by the chess floor, I walked like a guest who couldn't stop asking what a new day will bring on, and inviting me to seek in. As some paradise was waiting for me all the time, I knew that was indeed in my destiny. Because somehow, some way, it has to. 3:33 p.m. The phoenix bird is flying all the way around. We wait for the older men. They were hosting the Sunday welcoming, Today is the day. That's what I mean when everything feels changed around the city. We are new kids in town. We are walking up on the stairwell. We are inviting to seek through to some sort of magic portal that will take us to a platform, to a train, to a new place, to take us to another college, the college of the golden ones. where we are finally going to receive magic education about alchemy and life itself. The old man, the wise man who played chess with me at the building, finally introduced himself. His name was Harris, and he was a master in the school. He was actually the director, and he said now was the perfect time for me to move on and to attend the College of Wizards. Since I was becoming a magus, he said, I was capable of doing more than resurrecting the Phoenix. Yet he was amused by the incredible potential of giving magic to the bear figure. He said I was the reason why that bear sculpture came to life. It was my wonder that stimulated the ambience upon the building. Harry said my parents knew that I was a magus, but they wanted me to discover. Indeed, Harris knew my family. After all, my parents were out of town for a trip to Europe, remember? Harris gave me a letter, and it was from my parents, and it said, Dear Theo, we are going to be in Europe for some months. If you ever meet Harris, please just go to the College of Wizards and search for the White Owl. It will give you a key that is for you. Please take care of yourself, and most importantly, keep on being that curious kid. It was like a ceremony. I was trying to make sure. Thomas, Grace, and the sibling were by my side, since they were already my friends. Thomas told me the Golden Rule was a gift from his parents, and all of their parents seems to go to the College of Wizards, but it was some sort of a secret, It was something you will understand once you get into the building, or once you just let your imagination flow. And I somehow was happy about everything, because I knew I'd always been curious, and I always hoped for something great to happen. So back again at the old building, Harris, the director, said we were ready to be part of the college. He said we were maguses, and we wanted to understand the depths of magic. And the only way to decode it was to attend a real school once you are ready. And we were ready, that's for sure. Platform 333. Theo, Harris shouted, it's your turn. But I didn't pack anything, I replied. You don't need to. Boy, hear me out. You just need your wand, but I gave you one once you attend the College of Wizards. Okay, so how did you meet my parents? I asked. They were also students at the college, Harry said. Now it's your turn. You shall take the train among your friends. You'll be pretty welcome to the campus. Keep this letter. It's for you. Take care, curious kid. The rest of the group were also hosted by the other all-time masters. We walked right to the train. The platform was wide and looked ancient. The train was green, emerald green, and we took part, just searching for empty seats. I was looking for an empty seat next to the window. All time seekers, summer is on its end. You are welcome to the College of Wizards. Remember to keep curious. Grace, Thomas, and the siblings sat down by my side. I was watching the way their eyes used to shine. So why didn't you tell me? I said back to Thomas. Rule number 1. You shouldn't invite anyone. We were all invited by your curiosity, said Grace, sort of laughing. Really? I asked. Well, not always, said Thomas. Yet we were trying to know more about you. Maybe you had a laugh if we told you about our magic or some sort of stuff, I wouldn't have laughed, I replied. Thomas, I'm pretty curious. Yeah, now we know you're curious, said the siblings. Anyway, what's your last name? I asked Thomas. Thomas Rutherford, he said. And yours? I'm Theo Windorf, I replied. Grace Kempt, said Grace. We are Anna and John Griswold, said one of the siblings. So what was that magic about, Theo? How did you manage to wake the Phoenix just like that? Asked Tom. I don't know, I just did, I replied. That's why you need to keep studying, said Grace. We all have to. So what about your parents? I asked. My parents live nearby the ancient building, said Tom. Mines are in Europe, said Grace. Our parents are out of the country for business, said Anastasia Griswold. Oh, mines are in Europe too, I said. Do you have siblings, Theo? Asked John. No, I'm a single child, I replied. You look like a single child, said Anna, bold and curious. It was late afternoon. The train was getting full. We heard the sound of the two bells. While Harry's shaking his hand at the outside of the train, we knew it was time, right to the wonder. It was time to go to the College of Wizards. The train started moving. The sun was falling. The latter light habitated the train like a soft halo. We were drinking coffee, and already intrigued by the future college, we were doing all types of questions. As I mentioned, the train got full, so there was a bunch of youngsters like us talking in groups and waving their hands through the window to do a goodbye greetings to the master at the platform. It was the start of something new, and I saved my parents' letter onto my pocket. The train was moving even faster, and I looked how the green field seems to merge with the sky, just like a painting. The sun was setting, and the clouds looked like pink velvet cotton candy. I couldn't help but to feel grateful for the experience I was living. It was all but beautiful. Minutes passed by. The evening was falling, and was still watching through the window. The stars seemed pretty brilliant that night, and the moon was like a giant sphere, so bright it even reminded me of the golden ball back in the colorful room at the enchanted building. Monday. It was Monday morning when we reached the College of Wizards. The whole place looked like an antique castle, and the green field standing nearby looked eternal, as larger as many kilometers. We were hosted by another director, Harry's friend, called Mr. Weasley. He gave us an introduction to the College of Wizards and invited us to follow him. Both of the siblings were doing jokes when Mr. Weasley called their attention. It was required to be serious at the first entrance. College things. Welcome to the College of Wizards. Here's to the young ones, to the seekers, to the curious ones, Mr. Weasley said. There was a garden by the entrance. The whole college was surrounded by a high porch that had details in golden pieces. And I said before, the college looked like a castle, and once we were in, I realized it was a castle indeed. Long stairwells, plenty of books, and the light coming through the windows. Once you were inside the college, you could see the garden outside by the colored roses sparkling over the crystal windows. I heard a group of other boys talking about some mystery dragon that habitated the so-called place. It was strange. This will be the very first time to hear someone talking about a dragon. I heard they say there was a dragon that used to fly nearby the castle, and that every spring the dragon will change its color under a spell of some powerful magus, someone like us, but with more practice. Mr. Weasley told us to meet the director of the campus, called Mr. DuPont. He was responsible for welcoming, and he was waiting for us at the main hall. We all walked right to the hall to meet DuPont. DuPont, John was joking. DuPont, you fool, said Anna. Come on, guys, we are going to get granted again, said Thomas. We were like 100 youngsters all over the place, and the castle was big enough to host all of us and even more. The place was incredibly amusing. Welcome, young magicians, said DuPont. You are to seek wonders in this college. You are starting this year, but each year you will be invited to reunite at the main hall to see if you happen to complete all the levels of your degree. Now you will be guided by some magical birds to your own room, and then I'll be waiting for you next to our Magus Scully at Vic's salon. It was in that moment when a couple of white pigeons appeared to guide us to our rooms. I had to share a room with Thomas. He seems to be happy for it. The white pigeon was flying all around the castle, guiding us through some long passage to our room. Our room was green, and there was a big window where you could see the extending fields upon the mountains. Awesome, said Tom. Look, Theo, the pigeon is giving us the key. I grabbed the key, and while Tom was jumping on the beds, he opened the window so the pigeon would be able to fly back to where it belonged. I was surprised by the magic around the place. Suddenly, we heard a call for the students to meet up the big salon. We left the room and running to the salon, upon the stairwell, we managed to slide at this new beautiful golden salon that seems to emulate a paradise. I looked all over the corners, and just by the middle of the salon, there was a big sphere, like a world map shining in gold sparkles yet floating over the air. Suddenly, we met Mr. Dupont, sitting by the front of the salon. Mr. Winsley was standing by his side. "Anton Gilsmurk," Mr. Winsley said. A blond guy walked right to the front. A bird suddenly came in and left one by the floor. "All right, students, this is where all began," said Dupont. "Should I?" said the blond guy, while trying to grab the one from the floor. "Yes, but try to catch the one with your imagination," said Dupont. The blond guy tried, but couldn't. "Anyway, great start," said Winsley. The blond guy came back to the crowd. "No, come back here," said Winsley. The blond guy, who seemed preoccupied, walked to the one once again. "Try again," said Mr. Dupont. The guy successfully grabbed the one from the floor. "Okay," said Mr. Winsley. "Congratulations." The blond guy, Anton, looked utterly happy after grabbing the one from the floor. "I did it," he was shouting happily. "Time for you to keep on trying, young students," said Mr. Winsley. "We spent the day trying to grab our wands and we succeeded, although some took more time than others, but we finally had our own one." "You will meet books for you awaiting at your room," said Dupont. "Read them, but wait to practice each of the formulas alongside your teacher." We were told to grab the breakfast by the middle of the building, so we all walked towards the center of the castle to go for our meals. We saw an amount of white pigeons flying back to the garden. The sun was shining outside, and the day looked amazing, even from the inside of the castle. Tom asked for a dark coffee. Grace asked for tea. Anne and John asked for milk, and I wanted a hot chocolate. "So are you Theo, the FÉNIX guy?" a guy asked. It was the blond one, Anton. "Sure. How did you know?" I asked him. "Well, I heard a rumor that you wake the Phoenix," he said. "You should know my parents were one of the best magicians here, so—" "So what?" asked Grace. "So I better watch out, guys. Just saying," he said. Both of the siblings, Anastasia and John, laughed. "I don't care what you have to say," said Tom. "All right, I'm just saying," said Anton. He seems already like an entitled guy. Indeed he was. "I wouldn't care, Theo," said Tom, looking at me. Anton kept on walking alongside two other boys. "So what if we go for a walk upon the castle?" asked Tom. "Sure," I replied. The meal was truly delicious, and just by finishing it, we decided to go for a walk to explore the new land. "So have you heard about the dragon?" I asked Grace. "Did you?" she said. "I've never seen it, but people keep telling me those kinds of stories, about a dragon flying upon the castle on spring." "Yes, it is said that the dragon is waiting for the right magus to appear, and then it changes its colors," said John. "Odd," said Anastasia. "They say it's really a big dragon," John kept on saying. "So you're famous now?" Tom said, kind of laughing. "For what?" I asked. "The Phoenix thing, I guess," Tom continued. "It's true, Theo. No one ever awakens the Phoenix. You are indeed special," Grace said. We kept on walking. The stairwell was long as an eternal snail. We went to the library, right to explore the books this castle held. It was a giant library. Everything seemed to be big at the place. The books were antique enough, and many ones were written in Latin. We kept on sliding through the corridors in the majestic building until we came back to our rooms. We were given dark robes that had some golden details side to side. That was the so-called uniform of the magus. The first degree used a black attire with this golden detail. The next degrees will change the color, but it was just the star, so we were given the black ones. We had our own black books waiting for us at the room, and happily about our own magic wand, we were told to join a reunion outside at the garden. It was a cold Monday. The weather there seemed like winter. The sun was shining, but the air was freezing. The garden was decorated in roses, and the whole fields were long. There were a bunch of stores outside the campus, and it was said there was a magic town nearby the castle, a town for magicians, where we could find new assets for our magic journey, from new ones to antique ones, to new attires and magic books. Mr. Dupont was waiting for us at the garden. Standing next to a giant tree, he was looking pretty serious. He waited for all of us to join the place until saying, "Welcome to the garden of the College of Wizards. Here you should know how to maintain order, and please respect the magical creatures of the land." "Creatures?" John asked. "Sure," Mr. Weasley added. "So it's true that there's a dragonfly out there? Oh my God," Anna said. "It is, but he mostly flies around spring," Mr. Weasley added. "Although if you make a lot of noise or a big spell, he can appear, so I'd be curious but behave." "Okay, students, as I was saying, you should respect the magical creatures of the land," Mr. Dupont continued. "Phoenix Eye!" he shouted. Suddenly, a big bird flew around and stood nearby the tree until reaching Mr. Weasley's arms. "Here's Phoenix Eye. He's our guardian. So I said, you should behave," continued Dupont, pointing at the bird that seems to be an old eagle. The bird was flying all over the heads when we catch a rainbow. "In wisdom," Dupont and Weasley said. "In wisdom," we replied. We came back to the castle, so it started raining. "I hear it will snow," said Grace. "Snow?" I asked. "Yes, I love the snow," she continued. We went back to the library, and afterwards, we all met for lunch. We had a delicious banquet of food, and right after, we met at the big salon to learn how to use our magic wands. "In wisdom," Anton the blonde guy was saying. He seems to be pointing at the small pigeon that was flying all around, but nothing happened until he finally transformed the bird into a frog. "Ha ha, good one," said Tom, laughing at Anton. As I mentioned earlier, there was a big sphere by the middle of the salon that looked like a giant war map floating onto the air. The sphere was golden as the sun, and each time we waved our magic wand, the sphere shone brighter. We spent the day trying to practice the first rules of magic with our wands. The rule number 1 was to keep on desiring what you wanted to manifest on. Well, to keep the image on your mind, like some sort of visualization, until it appeared. Rule number 2 was, if you fail, you must try again. Rule number 3 was, if you accomplish the spell, you should try to do something even more difficult. Indeed, it was entertaining. I was watching all around. We were all trying to follow these rules while creating something out of nothing. The evening fell down. We had dinner and walked to our rooms. Tuesday. It wasn't that Tuesday morning when right after the breakfast we decided to explore the magic town. We wanted to explore the stores, so we kept on walking around the green fields until reaching what it seems an antique village. Tom bought dark chocolate and we kept on walking. I saw a bookshop, so I got in. Grace followed me. She had a fascination upon books. The rest of the group followed us too. "Excuse me, sir, do you happen to have a book of the French principle of magic?" I asked. An old man looked at me in a serious way. His deep eyebrows were pointing at my direction as he was studying me in some strange way. He was wearing dark green clothes and his hair was gray. "Young kid, are you familiar with magic?" he asked. "I am," I said. "College of Wizards, first year?" he asked. "I may have something for you. Let me see." The man started looking between the books until he managed to grab one and sliding the book to me. He said, "This one is one of the best books you could buy right now." "But I have no money," I said. The man was looking at me in an odd way. "Okay, you can give me your wand," he said. "No, I won't," I replied. The man smiled. "Good answer, kid. You should never give your magic wand to anyone or to strangers, he continued. I'll give you this book, but you should start practicing each thing with caution. Thank you, sir, I replied, and happened to grab the book. Grace was looking at the other books. We left the bookshop and went for a walk. The magic town looked like one of those fairy tales. People were all wearing long robes, and the place itself looked pretty ancient. We were walking down the streets when the snow started falling down onto our heads. It's snowing, said Grace. Time to go back to the campus. Why? Tom asked. The view is pretty beautiful here, and we still have time to keep exploring. What if Mr. Winsley realized we are here? Grace continued. And they told us about this town. We are just exploring, Tom replied. All right, Grace finally said. We kept on walking till reaching a place of antique magic wands. Look there, a magic store, shouted John. We got in. The place was strange. There were a bunch of magic wands hanging by the wall. Some of them were really beautiful, decorated in golden details. Look at that picture, said Grace, pointing at the wall. There was a photograph of what it seems to be a group of old students at the College of Wizards. They are all magicians, said Anna. They are, indeed, said a voice. A petite man appeared from the interior of the store. And they were pretty young, just like you. Hello, sir, I said back. Are you in your first year? The short man would continue. Yes, Tom replied. Okay, in the next years, you will be able to have your own magic wand with your names written in gold, the man said. Right, sir. That will be amazing, I replied. We stood a couple of minutes staring at the wands until we decided it was time to go back to the campus. We had our first Science of Magic class at the college, so we made sure we had our black books with us, and we reached the antique classroom. Welcome again, young magicians, said DuPont. It's time for you to open the book at page 33, he said. We all opened the book at the page. Okay now, Theo. Can you read the first quote? Mr. DuPont said. Sure, sir, I replied. Principle of magic. Stay curious, I read. Do you understand what it means? DuPont asked all of us. Well, it means, my dear students, that even in your deepest nights and deepest failures, you should always keep on seeking the light of the stars. You should always remain curious, young at heart, he continued. Magic is like that. You should remain curious. Do you understand it now? Yes, Mr. DuPont, we all replied. Suddenly, the sound of a piano reached the antique classroom. Time for the magic orchestra, said Mr. Winsley. The windows opened, and all got in, and flying above our heads, Mr. DuPont pointed at the bear until they all stood by Mr. DuPont's chair. We spent the class talking about the theory of magic, and once the class ended, we met at the salon to have lunch. The garden was beautiful as a painting. It was covered in snow, and the red roses were more of a burgundy color, seemed to be even awakened after the snow rain. We had a delicious meal for lunch, and we came back to our rooms. Tom kept talking about the magic Tom. He seems to be amused by the antique stores, especially the magic store with the wands. I was watching the way the snow was falling onto the green grass while thinking about the letter my parents left for me. It was just in the moment when I noticed a white pigeon trying to get into a room up on the window, so I opened the door to allow the bird to get in. The poor bird was wet after the snow and cold as it managed to fly down nearby the stove. I felt happy for being at the place, the College of Wizards. It seemed like a big adventure, and I was already enjoying the building. Tom was reading a book, and I happened to grab a book to join the literature mood. We spent the day reading and practicing the principle of magic until night came by. Wednesday. Another day arrived. We had our breakfast and met at the salon. We needed to go for a walk and look for firewood since the cold weather was here to stay. So we grabbed some college coats, black and golden, and we went in search for firewood at the garden. We were walking nearby the tallest trees when we found what seems to be an antique white tree moving in the middle of the forest. Aureum arbor, Grace shouted. The tree stopped moving. I didn't know you were into Latin, said Tom. I am, said Grace. We tried to walk softly, cursing the ground. After all, Mr. Dupont said we needed to be respectful with the magical creatures around the place. A witch, Antoinette. A witch, Antoinette. He ran towards Grace, laughing at her face. Suddenly, the tree moved. I wouldn't repeat that, Anton, Tom said back to him. We kept on walking. The morning was cold, as the snow kept on falling. We finally reached a place full of wood, so we happened to grab enough for the stops. We came back to the college. The weather was freezing. Luckily, we had hot chocolate waiting for us at the main salon. Once we were back at the castle, we told Mr. Winsley about the moving tree outside and left the firewood on the ground. He said the tree was called Arboris, and it was another guardian of the magic school. He also said it was harmless. The tree was just there to guide us in case we were lost at the forest. We continue our way right to the next class. Today we will play instruments to see if we could transform the melody into something more meaningful, anything we wanted, but they wanted to see if we improve our magic tricks. I got a flute, Tom had a violin, Grace a piano, and the siblings had all guitars. The rest of the other students also got their own instruments. I tried to play the flute. I wasn't exactly bad at it, but I wasn't the best either. Anyway, I tried to imagine I was good at it, and while picturing me as a good musician, I realized the melody started creating a bunch of flowers onto the garden outside. Good work, young boy, said Mr. Winsley. Grace was looking at me curious by the appearance of such flowers at the garden. Concentrate, Miss Grace, said Winsley. Concentrate and you'll be able to test yourself. She played the piano and suddenly a smile all came and sat down next to her. We spent the rest of the class trying to conquer the rules of manifesting our desires until some of us succeeded and some didn't. If you concentrate and let yourself go into the roots of your desire, you will achieve everlasting success, Mr. Dupont said. It was already the afternoon when all of a sudden we heard a big noise coming from the exterior of the castle. Something incredible amusing seems to be coming out of the clouds, like big wings, and sliding in between the snow. A storm is coming, Dupont said. Something in his voice sounded as preoccupied with the situation and somehow in deep alert. Please, guys, stay safe at the big salon, Mr. Winsley shouted. Aureum Eternalis in wisdom, Aureum Eternalis, Mr. Dupont started pointing it one at the big golden sphere that floating at the middle of the salon. The sphere suddenly turned transparent, just like a memory of the transparent ball of the enchanted building back in the old days at the colored room. And somehow I knew it was time. Something was about to happen. It was just time to observe the nature of the chaos emerging from the inside of the clouds. The dragon! Anton shouted, terrible, astonished. Calm, young students, Mr. Winsley added. If you keep on manifesting, the best outcome it would happen, but if you are pessimistic about it, we will fail. But it's not even spring. What is the dragon doing here? Shouted Tom. It must be searching, said Mr. Dupont. Searching for what? Asked Anton. The right, Magus, continued Mr. Dupont. We stood at the salon for a couple of minutes until we felt like an earthquake shaking the entire ground. For a moment, I didn't know what to do, but somehow inside, I felt the big sphere was calling out my name, so I did nothing but walking towards the center of the big salon to the golden ball. Theo, said Mr. Winsley. Phoenix, in wisdom, Eternalis, Aureum, Phoenix, I kept saying. As I was looking at the ball, the entire salon got in darkness. I need you to turn the lights back again, Mr. Winsley shouted. I'm afraid only the Magus can do such thing now, continued Mr. Dupont. Eternalis, Aureum, Phoenix, I kept saying. The golden ball suddenly started floating in circles all over the place. After some seconds, a golden halo appeared to be emerging from the interior of the ball until the sphere started breaking, and what it seems to be a neck came from the interior of the golden sphere. It was just in the moment when I saw the face of Mr. Dupont heavily staring at me, and while giving an intense glance, he moved his head up to the roof. The dragon is flying above the castle, said Mr. Winsley. I know, Mr. Dupont said. What can we do now? Winsley continued. Nothing, you'll see, Dupont said. What? Winsley asked. He was half terrified, as he seemed not to understand what Mr. Dupont was saying. Even though the whole salon was in darkness, I somehow could see the figure of a young bird coming out of the egg in the middle of the salon. Eternalis, Aureum, Phoenix, I kept saying. The broken sphere suddenly came back at its initial form, like a golden ball, at the middle of the salon. I ran towards the bird, and grabbing into my arms, I managed to reach the window. I left the bird at the outside. A few moments after, the storm became even more heavy, and the snow seemed to cover the whole garden. We all stood by the window, looking at the bird, when something flying at the sky started coming to our direction. The dragon is coming! Anton shouted. The sudden moment of deep amusement was growing from the inside of the castle, and I didn't know how I managed to decode something about the bird, when a couple of minutes the small bird disappeared. The storm stopped, and the garden outside started glowing like an enchanting landscape covered in ice. I was looking at the sky. The dragon started fading away among the clouds. Mr. Dupont looked at me and gave me a smile. Well done, Theo. You just decoded the first mystery and made it into the first degree, he said. The snow kept on falling, but this time the landscape over the fields was shining, reflecting the sun into the ice. I stood there looking in silence until I somehow realized it was all done by the law's assumption. Just needed to believe. And even in the darkest hours, I somehow believed. A single ray of light, that was it. In the middle of the fields, the sun was hitting the empty crossover, and I was wondering what this whole new week will bring on, as my lungs breathing among the air of this very young breeze while stepping onto the side of the land. It was a new day back at the campus, and I was walking down at the fields, right at the garden, when I saw the figure of a white owl flying towards me. It was holding a key, the key my parents used to talk about in that letter. I grabbed the key and sliding my arm into the air, the bird finally stood by my shoulders. Upon the fields, I saw the figure of Tom, Grace, and the siblings running onto my direction. Theo, it's vacations, Tom said. Where are you going to spend the next month? Grace asked. I think I'll stay here, just practicing magic, I said back. All right, young sport, Tom replied. You can have your own one now, Grace said. Really? I asked. Well, I heard that if you happen to decode the first degree, you can have your name written in gold upon your wand, said Grace. Mr. Dupont and Mr. Winsley joined the conversation. Well done, Theo, they said, as extending their arms to give me a handshake. Mr. Winsley gave me a golden flute. They said it was an old symbol for magic. They said the flute was my instrument, while also giving me a new one that had my name printed on it in golden details. You, young Theo, you're a special student of life. Never let fear be your curiosity, said Mr. Dupont. As I was there, remembering the very start of the streets, meeting the so-called brick enchanted building by the other side of the land, I somehow realized that it was all product of my curiosity, and I somehow, some way, I was enjoying. So here I am, in this side of the land. Everything is magical if you happen to believe. After all, in this long humanity, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I was indeed a full-time seeker. I wanted to seek for the beauty of the magic of existence, and I wanted to seek beyond it, beyond the sun, beyond the stars. I wanted to keep on practicing, to keep on searching. I was a student of life. So on this new day, I remember the old building, the chess game, the black and white floor, the long stairwell. Of course it was pretty odd, but it was my infinity wonder the one who invited me to join the place. My curiosity always guiding me to join new places. So that's how everything started. And up to those vacations, that's how I'll spend the next days, just practicing magic until it's time to get on the classes back again. This has been The College of Wizards, Phoenix, Part 1. Read by Cielo Lavergne.